chairmen, governors, fellows, scholars, members of staff, and alumni. It is a humbling privilege to be asked to deliver our Founders' Day oration. I'm grateful to the college for giving me the invitation and was delighted to accept to share some personal thoughts with you. Founders' Day is when we give thanks for our founder, Frederick Crawford Goodenough, and all our other benefactors, especially those on our roll of founding partners. We remember the reasons they founded Goodenough College and remind ourselves of the importance of being true to our motto, Unitas in sapienta, nemo separabit. Unity in wisdom, none shall separate. We live today in times of immense challenge. COVID-19 threatens our lives, our livelihoods, and indeed our whole way of life. That today's proclamation of our new fellows and this oration are reaching you by electronic means and not by us meeting together in our college in person is stark evidence of the current reality. It also is a clear demonstration of the great commitment to maintaining the spirit and activities of our college that is being given by our director, Rebecca Matthews, and by her executive team, ably supported by our board and governors. Our fellows have continued to support our resident members through, for example, holding virtual meetings and seminars. Our resident members have shown great commitment, resilience, and spirit in adversity. May I, on behalf of all supporters of Goodenough College, offer our thanks to and respect for the whole of our community. Human beings are very often reacting to existential threat by retreating into clan mode, huddling around the familiar, looking for others to blame, competing with other clans for resources. We observe much of that today. Looking around the world, many leaders are giving of their very best to keep humanity medically and economically as safe as possible, while steering a course through the unknown and uncharted waters of the pandemic. Disappointingly, however, many of those in leadership roles are behaving as politicians and not as statesmen. They are pointing the finger at the perceived or invented shortcomings of others, not looking to contribute positively and in common to beat the common problem. Indeed, we see examples of those who believe, often wrongly, that they themselves will not suffer from the disease and looking for reasons to opt out of the means of solution for all, rather than making their best contribution to the common good. Such irresponsibility cannot be accepted. A real concern is that it often appears that the default mode of human beings is competitiveness to benefit relatively small groups. My thesis today is that we do best by following a coherent approach that will benefit us all. My belief is that Goodenough College, our resident members, our alumni, our fellows, our staff, our governors and our founders, represented in 2020 by our founding partners, is a symbol and a means of coherence that will help us all to reach a better future. So what is meant by coherence? There are many ways of working together. For example, conformity and cooperation. But coherence is something that allows for and takes advantage of human diversity and different circumstances to serve common problems to the benefit of all. Let me illustrate with personal experience of different ways of working in the fields of economics, international aid, and energy. One of the keys to achieving sound and sustainable economic growth that can effectively close the gap between the haves and have-nots, growth that is based on increased employment, growth that leads to higher standards of living and economic security for all citizens, is enabling efficient allocation of financial resources, particularly efficient capital allocation. This is a vital part of successful public and private sector activity. There has to be a rational basis for choosing how resources will be made available for different purposes. For example, industry, hospitals, and schools. If investors, governments, and others are to make sound capital allocation decisions, particularly when accessing international markets, Financial information on companies and other entities needs to be prepared and reported on a consistent basis. This will enable investors to be better able to compare financial statements across borders, judging like with like, leading to more rational capital deployment. The benefits are available to all. In particular, developing countries that adopt international standards will see increased outside investment in their economies by institutional and retail investors who are familiar with and confident in the standards of preparation and audit of financial information, regardless of geography. One of my roles in the past was to be president of the International Federation of Accountants. This is a body of accountancy institutions from more than 130 countries, which, inter alia, sets global professional standards of auditing, ethics, and education for professional accountants, and promotes the use of international accounting standards set by the International Accounting Standards Board. The needs of all countries and of national and international regulators are recognized during the standard setting process. Our belief is that global standards result in increased transparency, accountability, and prosperity. Achieving the greatest economic benefit from these standard setting activities requires conformity of use and application of standards. Using only roughly comparable information leads to only roughly effective capital allocation. Global compliance with global standards is our direction. We promote not only doing the right thing, but doing it in the right way, requiring the world's 3 million professional accountants to advocate and act with integrity, transparency, and expertise. Together, we strive to build an investment climate of trust, leading to stronger and more stable economies around the world, contributing to greater economic growth and stability, and a better quality of life for people around the globe. This experience is evidence that conformity is the route where standardization and uniformity are the desired outcomes. As the first Chief Commissioner of the Independent Commission for Aid Impact, or ICAI for short, I saw at first hand the importance of thorough and deep cooperation. ICAI is the independent body responsible for scrutinising UK aid. It focuses on maximising the effectiveness of the UK aid budget for intended beneficiaries and on delivering value for money for UK taxpayers. We report on government to Parliament via a Parliamentary Select Committee. Our yardstick is efficiently delivered aid, which provides continuing benefits to the intended beneficiaries. We have seen a great variety of approaches, many hugely successful, some achieving little. The badges of success include whether the programme has realistic and appropriate objectives and a clear plan as to how and why the planned intervention will have the intended impact, has robust delivery arrangements which support the desired objectives and to demonstrate good governance and management throughout the delivery chain, is having a transformational, positive, and lasting impact on the lives of the intended beneficiaries, and is transparent and accountable. Our experience showed that these badges are more likely to be displayed when the aid provider is working in close cooperation with the national and local government authorities of the recipient countries. It is also key that the donor's aid policy and government policy of the recipient nation be closely aligned. Where these cooperative conditions were met, we saw real and enduring progress and benefits for the citizens of the developing countries concerned. An excellent example was a project to improve rural livelihoods in Western Odisha. A strong focus on the UK government working closely with the government of India, the Odisha state government and village leaders produced a well-planned programme which brought meaningful, long-lasting benefits to communities. In other projects where cooperative conditions were not met, progress, if any, was slow and often temporary. ICAI's work here demonstrated that cooperation is the route when one country wants to use the experience of another to change lives for the better. Probably the greatest existential threat to both humanity and the Earth as a whole is climate change. We have been vandalizing our world and urgently need both to repair the damage and to agree on future behaviors which will avoid repetition of our mistakes. We must achieve coherence with our environment. We must be successful in that. We cannot be at war with our surroundings. Also, we cannot be at war with ourselves. Replacing environmental vandalism with rioting mobs and their associated vandalism is not the way to succeed. Coherent hard work to achieve a proper balance with nature is our duty to ourselves and to our descendants, and indeed to the other life with which we share our planet. For 6 years, I was a vice chairman of the World Energy Council, a truly global UN-accredited organization which has been promoting the sustainable supply and use of energy for nearly good enough's lifetime to date of 90 years. We do this by promoting successfully managed energy transition, which delivers benefits of sustainable energy for all. We bring together energy ministers, energy company CEOs, professional advisors, NGOs, and consumers. We stimulate action to deal with the energy trilemma of energy security, energy equity, and environmental sustainability. Be in no doubt that energy is critical to the development of a nation. Good access to energy is key to creating health, high-quality education, successful industry, employment, access to water, and self-respect amongst the population. Unless, however, that energy is produced and used in sustainable ways, we are on a path to obliteration. One major thread of action is that the World Energy Council is cooperating with the United Nations in its Sustainable Energy for All initiative, embodied in United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 7. This initiative, which is consistent with the Net Zero by 2050 objective, seeks to achieve, by 2030, 3 objectives: universal access to modern energy services, double the share of renewable energy in the global energy mix, double the global rate of improvement of energy efficiency. This project has the personal support of the United Nations Secretary General and involves many, many international energy organizations and companies, as well as huge political commitment. The project has many facets involving radical policy changes by governments, moving power sources from hydrocarbons to non-CO2 emitting primary energy, and local action to use energy more efficiently and effectively. At a macro level, for example, in respect of electrical energy, switching from, say, coal-fired generation to wind and solar power requires the provision of major new generating plant and new and differently conformed transmission and distribution capacity. This is hugely expensive, and it can be hugely disruptive of local and national economies. Fossil fuels are the lifeblood of many countries across the spectrum of the state of development of economies. For example, some 60% of the Russian budget is covered by fossil fuel revenues. In Venezuela, the economy contracted by 2/3 after an oil price collapse, with some 5 million people fleeing the country. Energy policy reform requires associated economic and social policy reform if humanitarian as well as environmental objectives are to be met. A coherent approach is vital. Action also is required, however, at a micro level. Projects such as solar hurricane lamps, which make all the difference to the education of young people living in remote villages who now are able to do homework during the hours of darkness, are producing real educational advances. In domestic daily life, at present, millions of people cook family meals over open fires in small huts. As well as causing environmental pollution, the fumes cause diseases such as cancer and bronchitis, which severely affect the life expectancy of such people, especially women, as well as causing them pain daily. By using improved fuels in pot-bellied stoves with chimneys, these problems can be dealt with both quickly and easily. Coherent action around the world can bring together these diverse needs and the actions necessary to meet them, whilst catering for different conditions in different places. The need for energy transition is urgent, but it is not the work of a moment. Trying to force a uniform approach to achieve it just will not work. Different countries start from very different positions. For example, predominantly hydro generation in Norway, nuclear generation in France, and fossil fuel-fired generation in India, China, and the United States. Different countries have access to very different natural resources. For example, wind in Tasmania and Egypt, hydro in Canada, and solar in India and Africa. One size does not fit all in planning a path to success. Different countries must make different changes, recognizing local factors. They all benefit, however, from a coherent approach of learning from and with each other, and of being part of a group with a common strategic objective. Many technologies and innovations will be needed, connecting across countries and sectors and engaging multiple stakeholders and diverse policy shapers. Coherent work under the aegis of the United Nations, helped by committed organizations such as the World Energy Council, is needed to address these matters. Coherence is hard work. The challenge of coherence is the constant need to fight the entropy of short-term economic and political pressures to deviate from the long-term path to success. This requires constant monitoring, together with the application of well-focused scientific and financial energy to restore the right direction of travel. Coherence is the route when a problem manifests itself in different ways in different places, where the broad and globally desired outcomes must manifest themselves in different ways in different places in order to benefit humanity as a whole. People often fail to understand that competing with obliteration, be it from war, disease, or climate change, requires coherent cooperation to beat those enemies. One of the foundational reasons for Good Enough College is to fight this failure. In addressing so many of the world's existential challenges, we are starting from a far from ideal place. How do we move from where we are to where we could and should be? Can we survive the pain of transition? Can we replace the politics of jealousy with the politics of emulation? Can we replace selfish approaches in international relations with mutual respect? Can we combat humanity's immune system of clan behavior, which can threaten our progress to better outcomes for all? Determined coherence, progress to common strategic objectives via diverse but linked routes, can provide the answers. Good Enough is about just that. Coherent action is not about command and control. It is not about blind uniformity. It is not about ignoring what is not familiar. It is about understanding strengths, weaknesses, and points of view. It is about using our different experiences and knowledge to compensate for our weaknesses. It is about using a diversity to support each other to adapt to facing new challenges. It is a huge privilege to be part of our great college, where every meeting I have had with our characteristically intelligent, broad-minded, and involved resident members over 20 years of being part of Good Enough has been an inspiration. I am recording these words on the 30th of September, the heart of National Inclusion Week. Good Enough College is an exemplar of inclusivity. Our vision, a fellowship of global citizens with shared values of tolerance, respect, understanding, service, and togetherness, reflecting the spirit of the UK and the principles of the Commonwealth, and our mission to create a stimulating, inclusive, and mutually supportive residential community in the heart of London, where outstanding postgraduate students exchange ideas, openly debate values, and form lasting friendships, lead us to the path of success. My generation, although it has achieved much good, has often failed to find the magic bullet that brings us to a coherent world of which we all can be proud. You, particularly our resident members and alumni, have the opportunity to be brighter, more focused, more coherent than we. I hope and believe that you will take this opportunity, so the challenges of coherence for the benefit of all can be met. Unitas in sapientia, nemo separabit.